50 years ago, President Gerald Ford escaped assassination, not once, but twice, within 17 days. Both attempts were in California, and both attempts were by women. In all of U.S. history, it's the only time a woman has tried to assassinate the president. I'm Bob Summers, and this is a presidential story. In July 1975, Democratic California Governor Jerry Brown had only been in office for 6 months. When he refused an invitation to speak at the 49th annual Sacramento Host Breakfast, which was typically addressed by the governor, the mostly Republican organizers sought to teach Brown a political lesson by inviting Republican President Gerald Ford. Ford realized that California's electoral votes in the upcoming 1976 presidential election would be crucial for re-election. So he accepted the invitation to speak at the Sacramento, California Convention Center on the morning of September 5th, 1975. Around the same time, a couple of other things of note happened. First, the Environmental Protection Agency released a study that California's smog was killing the redwoods, and second, it was reported that President Ford had asked Congress to relax provisions of the 1963 Clean Air Act. These items caught the attention of 26-year-old Lynette Squeaky Fromm, or Fromey. I've heard it both ways. Fromm was an early and devoted member of the Manson family cult. Although Fromm was not implicated in any of the 9 known murders committed by the Manson family in the late 60s and early 70s, including the murder of actress Sharon Tate, she did camp outside the courthouse during the trial and carved an X in her forehead in solidarity with Manson and his co-defendants. By 1975, Fromm felt personally responsible for the fate of California's giant coastal redwoods, the largest trees in the world. She believed that the automobile smog reaching the redwoods would cause them to fall. Fromm saw that President Ford was visiting Sacramento and would be staying at the Senator Hotel, which was located about half a mile from her apartment. Initially, she thought she would get a meeting with Ford, but then realized that would not affect any real change. So she decided that she would bring attention to the trees by creating fear in the government by killing its symbol, the President of the United States. Her motive was to preserve life through clean air, healthy water, and respect for creatures and creation. At 9:26 a.m. on September 5, 1975, Ford returned to the Senator Hotel from his 2-hour speaking engagement at the Host Breakfast. About 30 minutes later, according to Secret Service agent Larry Boondorf, Ford was supposed to take his motorcade to the California State Capitol building for a speech that day and meeting with the governor. Boondorf recalled, he walked out of the hotel that morning, saw it was a beautiful day. It's always a beautiful day in Sacramento. He walked out and said, "I think I'll walk." That wasn't in the plan. As the Secret Service established a perimeter, Ford began walking towards the state capitol building and shaking the hands of those in the crowd who had gathered. One of those who had gathered to see Ford was Fromm, dressed in a hand-sewn, long red robe, red for the animals and earth colors, with a 64-year-old Colt M1911 .45 caliber semi-automatic pistol in her left ankle holster, which was an unusual selection for an assassin as it is rather large and hard to conceal. About halfway to the Capitol, Ford was walking along a paved path within Capitol Park with Secret Service agent Boondorf at Ford's left shoulder. Ford saw a woman in a brightly colored dress and stopped, assuming she wanted to shake hands or talk like the others in the crowd. Fromm was behind the first row in the crowd, reached into her robe and drew her Colt .45 pistol from her ankle holster. Fromm raised her right arm towards Ford through the front row of people and pointed the gun at Ford's midsection. From Ford's perspective, he noted,
"As I stopped, I saw a hand come through the crowd in the first row, and that was the only active gesture that I saw, but in the hand was a weapon."
Agent Boondorf also saw the threat, yelled, "Gun!" and without a protective vest lunged at the shooter. Luckily, there was not a round in the chamber, so all that those around Fromm had heard was a metallic click. 5 years later, Frome claimed that she purposely ejected the round from the chamber onto the floor of her apartment because she was not determined to kill the guy. That may be revisionist history, as in the moment, Frome was heard shouting, "It wouldn't go off." Agent Boondorf grabbed the gun before Frome could attempt to fire a second time, disarmed her, and brought her to the ground. While on the ground, Frome said, "It didn't go off. Can you believe it? It didn't go off." Another Secret Service agent shouted, "Get down, let's go." Ford's agents then half-dragged Ford away from the scene towards the east entrance of the Capitol until Ford yelled, "Put me down! Put me down!" Ford continued his walk to the California State House, although at a much faster pace. The entire walk that started at his hotel lasted only 4 minutes. Once in the State House, Ford met with California Governor Jerry Brown for 30 minutes, without mentioning the attempt on his life until they finished talking business. Ford, who later indicated that he was not scared, stated, "I thought I'd better get on with my day's schedule." To reporters, Ford commended the Secret Service for their superb protection and stated he would not let the attempt influence his conduct. "This incident under no circumstances will prevent me or preclude me from contacting the American people as I travel from one state to another and from one community to another. In my judgment, it is vitally important for a president to see the American people, and I am going to continue to have that personal contact and relationship with the American people." On November 1st, 1975, 3 days before Frome's trial was scheduled to begin, President Ford gave videotaped testimony from the White House as a defense witness, marking the first time a U.S. president testified at a criminal trial. After the 2-week trial, Frome was convicted of attempting to assassinate Ford under a 1965 law passed after the Kennedy assassination that made attempted presidential assassinations a federal crime. After U.S. Attorney Duane Keyes recommended severe punishment because she was full of hate and violence, Frome threw an apple at him, hitting him in the face and knocking off his glasses. Not the most effective rebuttal on Frome's part. She was sentenced to life in prison. On December 23, 1987, Frome escaped from federal prison camp Alderson in West Virginia in an attempt to meet up with Manson. She was captured 2 days later. She was granted parole in July 2008, but was not immediately released because of the extra time added to her sentence from her escape 21 years earlier. She was eventually released from prison on August 14, 2009, 2 years and 8 months after Ford's death. She moved to Marcy, New York, where as of this recording, she still resides. One pop culture side note. In March 1976, a few months after Frome's trial and when filming for Star Wars had begun, director George Lucas was notified of concerns that the protagonist's surname Starkiller could be construed to mean celebrity killer in reference to Charles Manson and the Manson family. Lucas renamed the character Luke Skywalker because of the very unpleasant connotation. 17 days after the Frome attempt in Sacramento, Ford was scheduled to return to California to address the AFL-CIO convention in San Francisco, and there was another female assassin waiting to violently bring change to America. Sarah Jane Moore, a 45-year-old mother of 4 and 5-time divorcee with a fascination and obsession with Patricia Hearst, served as a volunteer bookkeeper for People in Need, an organization created by Randolph Hearst to feed the poor in response to his daughter's kidnapping. Moore was also involved in the radical San Francisco politics of the era, where she alternated between activist and FBI informant. Earlier in 1975, Secret Service agents evaluated Moore but concluded that she posed no danger to the president. The day before the assassination attempt, Moore was detained by the police on an illegal handgun charge, but was released. The police did confiscate her .44 caliber Charter Arms Bulldog revolver and 113 rounds of ammunition. After her release, Moore immediately went out and bought a .38 Special revolver. On Monday, September 22, 1975, at 3:30 p.m., Ford finished his speech and emerged from the north entrance of the St. Francis Hotel and walked towards his limousine. Before climbing inside, Ford stopped and waved to the 3,000-person crowd across the street. In that crowd, about 40 feet away, Moore fired a single shot from her new .38 Special. Because she was using an unfamiliar gun, she did not realize that the sights were off by about 6 inches at that distance. Moore's shot missed Ford by about 5 inches and passed through the wall above the doorway Ford had just exited. As Ford recalled, as he waved, he heard a noise which sounded like a gunshot. Almost instantaneously, several people pushed him down to the sidewalk. At the direction of the Secret Service, Ford crawled the few feet into the limousine. 2 Secret Service agents and Chief of Staff Donald Rumsfeld crawled into the limousine on top of him. Ford remained below window level for a couple of blocks before he uttered, "Hey guys, will you get off? You're smothering me." Back at the hotel, standing next to Moore, was Oliver Sipple, a former U.S. Marine who had been wounded in Vietnam. Sipple said at the time, "I saw her gun pointed out there and I grabbed for it. I lunged and grabbed the woman's arm and the gun went off." The bullet from the second shot ricocheted and hit John Ludwig, a 42-year-old taxi driver standing inside the hotel, in the groin. Ludwig survived. At the scene, Secret Service and the San Francisco police commended Sipple for his actions. The media portrayed Sipple as a national hero. Ford wrote a letter of thanks to Sipple for his bravery. The day after the incident, San Francisco Chronicle columnist Herb Caen received a phone call from local gay activist Harvey Milk. Milk told Caen that Sipple had worked on his city council campaign and was indeed gay. Milk wanted to portray Sipple as a gay hero, telling a friend, "It's too good an opportunity. For once we can show that gays do heroic things." Sipple was known within the San Francisco gay community and had participated in gay pride events. However, he had kept his sexuality secret from his family and employer. He asked the press to keep his sexuality off the record. Caen published the story. Sipple and his family were besieged by reporters looking for comment. When Sipple called his mother, a devout Baptist in Detroit, she disparaged and disowned him. According to Sipple's brother, George, his parents eventually accepted his sexual orientation. They didn't like it, but accepted it. Other sources say the family never did reconcile. Sipple sued the Chronicle, Caen, and others, filing a $15 million invasion of privacy suit. He lost the lawsuit in 1984 when a state court of appeals held that Sipple had become news, that his sexual orientation was part of the story. Moore pleaded guilty to charges of attempted assassination on December 12, 1975. The next month, she was sentenced to life in prison. At her sentencing hearing, Moore stated, "Am I sorry I tried? Yes and no. Yes, because it accomplished little except to throw away the rest of my life. And no, I'm not sorry I tried, because at the time it seemed a correct expression of my anger." Like Fromm, Moore also escaped from prison, but her freedom only lasted for 2 hours. She said, "If I knew that I was going to be captured several hours later, I would have stopped at the local bar just to get a drink and a burger." A year after Ford's death, on December 31st, 2007, Moore was paroled after serving 32 years of her life sentence. In an interview, Moore stated, "I'm very glad I did not succeed. I know now that I was wrong to try." In February 2019, at age 89, Moore was arrested for violating her parole by failing to tell her parole officer about a trip which took her outside the country. She served 5 more months. Moore is currently 95 years old and living in an undisclosed location. In response to the 2 attempts on Ford's life in California, California Governor Jerry Brown signed into law bills imposing mandatory sentences for persons convicted of using guns in committing serious crimes, and requiring purchasers of guns to wait 15 days for delivery. The Secret Service also made some adjustments. The Secret Service maintains a 50-foot buffer between the president and unscreened crowds. It also shortens the time it takes to get the president into a limousine by having the limo door already open as the president approaches the vehicle. Starting in October 1975, Ford began to wear a bulky 6-pound bulletproof trench coat. When asked about the protective coat in 1977, Ford said, "I would not be honest to say that I took it as a matter of course. It bothered me, and I certainly would have preferred not to wear it, but I felt it was my obligation to do it." Ford did not play up the drama or the danger as he continued to visit with the public, and he never did face another assassination threat over his remaining 16 months in office. Thanks for watching.